homeless teen slept beside his broken bike. What a biker gang did after seeing him brought the internet to tears. The boy was curled against the wheel like a promise kept to metal and rust. Dawn hadn't broken yet, just that gray hour when darkness starts losing its grip, and the gas station parking lot sat empty except for the kid and the broken-down motorcycle he'd wrapped himself around. His jacket was too thin for November in Nebraska, his hands tucked under his armpits for warmth, and even in sleep his body stayed protective, one arm draped over the bike's frame, like he was afraid someone might steal the only thing he had left. The bike was a 1985 Honda Rebel, held together with duct tape and stubbornness, its engine cold and quiet as a gravestone. He couldn't have been more than 17, maybe younger, with dark circles under his eyes and dirt under his fingernails, and he slept the way people sleep when safety is a luxury they can't afford, light and ready to run. Wait, before the next ride begins? If this story already hit you right in the chest, tell us where you're watching from. To ride with the Brotherhood through the next promise, loss, or redemption, subscribe and join the club. Engines up, back to the road. Trace Coleman saw him first. He'd pulled into the gas station at 5:45 in the morning, leading a group of 8 riders heading west from Omaha to a Veterans Memorial dedication in Wyoming. Trace was 42, road captain for the Iron Covenant MC, and he'd seen enough hard luck in his time to recognize it sleeping in a parking lot at dawn. He killed his engine, put down the kickstand, and the silence that followed brought the rest of the group to attention. Knox pulled up beside him, younger, maybe 30, with prospect colors and eyes that still carried optimism. "What's up?" Trace nodded toward the boy and the bike. "Company." The others cut their engines.
Bishop, the club president, a man whose gray hair and steady hands had guided them through 12 years of road and weather. Hawk, the sergeant-at-arms, built like a wall and just as immovable. Maria, the only woman in the group, who'd lost her son to the streets 5 years ago and never stopped looking for him in every kid who needed help. 3 other members, Colt, Diesel, and Reed, all seasoned riders who'd learned that brotherhood meant paying attention to things most people rode past. They stood there in the pre-dawn quiet, studying the scene. The kid didn't wake, too exhausted or too used to noise to register the presence of 8 motorcycles 20 feet away. "How long you think he's been there?" Knox asked quietly. "Long enough," Maria said, her voice tight. She was already moving, crossing the parking lot with the kind of careful approach you use around wounded animals. Bishop, the club president, a man whose gray hair and steady hands had guided them through 12 years of road and weather. Hawk, the sergeant-at-arms, built like a wall and just as immovable. Maria, the only woman in the group, who'd lost her son to the streets 5 years ago and never stopped looking for him in every kid who needed help. 3 other members, Colt, Diesel, and Reed, all seasoned riders who'd learned that brotherhood meant paying attention to things most people rode past. They stood there in the pre-dawn quiet, studying the scene. The kid didn't wake, too exhausted or too used to noise to register the presence of 8 motorcycles 20 feet away. "How long you think he's been there?" Knox asked quietly. "Long enough," Maria said, her voice tight. She was already moving, crossing the parking lot with the kind of careful approach you use around wounded animals. The men followed at a distance, instinctively forming a loose perimeter, not threatening, just present. Maria knelt about 5 feet from the boy, close enough to speak, far enough not to startle. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey, kid, you okay?" The boy's eyes snapped open, green and wild with the panic of someone who'd learned to wake up ready to fight or flee. He scrambled back, putting the bike between himself and Maria, his body coiled tight. "Easy," Maria said, hands up, open. "Nobody's going to hurt you. We're just passing through, saw you sleeping out here, wanted to make sure you were all right." The boy's eyes darted from Maria to the riders behind her, cataloging threats, calculating distances. His voice came out rough, unused. "I'm fine, just resting." "In a gas station parking lot," Trace said, not unkindly. "In November, without a coat." "I said I'm fine." Bishop stepped forward, slow and deliberate, the way you move when you want someone to see every intention before you arrive. He looked at the bike, at the duct-taped fuel line and the cracked seat, and the chain that had snapped and been jury-rigged back together with wire. "That's your ride." The boy's jaw tightened. "Yeah. What happened to it?" "Chain broke. 20 miles back. I walked it here." "Walked it?" Hawk repeated. 20 miles. 17, the boy corrected, defensive. "And I had to stop twice." Bishop crouched beside the rebel, running his hand over the frame with the kind of reverence mechanics reserve for machines that refuse to quit. "This bike's older than you are." "It's mine," the boy said, and the possessiveness in his voice carried everything: pride and desperation and the terror of losing the last thing that meant anything. "Not saying it isn't," Bishop said evenly. "Just saying she's seen some miles. You do the work yourself?" The boy hesitated, then nodded. "Taught myself. YouTube videos mostly. Had to keep her running because—" He stopped, swallowed whatever truth he'd almost shared. "Because you needed her to," Maria finished gently. The boy looked at her, and something in his face cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but enough to show the exhaustion underneath. "Yeah. What's your name?" Bishop asked. "Why?" "Because we're not going to keep calling you kid." Another hesitation, longer this time. Then, "Danny. Danny Reese." "Danny," Bishop repeated, standing, offering his hand. "I'm Bishop. This is my club. We ride together, we look out for each other, and right now we're looking at a young man who walked 17 miles with a broken bike in the cold. That tells me something about your character." Danny didn't take the offered hand, just stared at it like it might be a trap. "I don't need charity." "Didn't offer any," Bishop said, unfazed. "But I am offering breakfast. There's a diner about a mile up the road. We're heading there anyway, and you look like you could use some food that isn't from a gas station." "I can't," Danny started, then stopped. His stomach betrayed him, growling loud enough for everyone to hear. His face flushed. Knox stepped forward, pulling off his own jacket, a heavy denim with fleece lining. "Here, you can give it back after breakfast." "I don't—" "Kid," Hawk interrupted, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer. "We've been where you are. Maybe not exactly, but close enough. And the one thing we learned is that accepting help isn't weakness, it's survival. So take the jacket, come eat some eggs, and then you can tell us all to go to hell if you want, but do it on a full stomach." Danny looked at each of them in turn, searching for the angle, the catch, the inevitable demand for payment. But all he saw was 8 riders who'd stopped their journey because a homeless kid was sleeping in a parking lot. And something in him, something that had been holding tight for too long, loosened just enough to let possibility in. He took the jacket, put it on. It was warm from Knox's body heat and smelled like leather and road and safety. "The bike," Danny started. "We'll bring it," Diesel said, already assessing the chain. "Won't ride, but we can load it. Colt's got a trailer for his Harley. We'll strap yours in, bring it to the diner. That work?" Danny nodded, unable to speak. 20 minutes later, they sat in a booth at Millie's diner, Danny wedged between Maria and Knox while the others took surrounding tables. The waitress, an older woman named Ruth who'd seen the Iron Covenant patch before and approved, brought coffee without being asked and menus she knew most of them wouldn't need. "Usual?" she asked Bishop. "Please, and whatever the kid wants." He looked at Danny. "Order anything. We're buying." Danny stared at the menu like it was written in a language he'd forgotten how to read. His hands shook slightly as he held it. Maria reached over, gently turned it to the breakfast section. "The pancakes are good here. So's the omelet. Can't go wrong with either." "Pancakes," Danny said quietly. "And
maybe eggs, if that's okay?" Ruth, Bishop called. "Stack of pancakes, scrambled eggs, bacon, hash browns, and orange juice for the kid." "On it," Ruth said. And there was something in her smile, approval or recognition, or maybe just kindness, that made Danny's eyes sting. They let him eat in silence at first, just the comfortable sounds of breakfast and coffee and people who knew how to share space without filling it with noise. Danny ate like he'd been hungry for longer than just one night, methodically, steadily, barely pausing. He finished the pancakes, the eggs, the bacon, the hash browns, and when Ruth brought more toast without being asked, he ate that too. Only when he finally sat back, the hollowness in his stomach filled for the first time in what might have been days, did Bishop speak. "So, you want to tell us your story, or you want us to guess?" Danny's eyes flickered, caution returning with calories. "What's it matter to you?" "Doesn't, particularly," Bishop said honestly. "You could walk out of here right now and we'd wish you well, but you've got a broken bike, no coat, and nowhere to go. We've got tools, time, and a habit of helping people who need it. So the question is whether you want that help or whether you'd rather keep doing what you've been doing. Which is what? Surviving, Maria said. Alone, one day at a time, until something goes wrong and you don't make it to the next day. Danny looked at her, saw the grief and knowledge in her eyes, the understanding that came from loss. You don't know anything about me. I know you're 17, maybe 18, she said. I know you're sleeping in parking lots. I know you'd rather freeze than leave your bike behind, which means it's not just transportation. It's everything. Freedom, mobility, home. I know you're scared but too proud to show it. And I know that whatever put you on that bike and on the road, it was bad enough that sleeping next to a broken chain in November seemed like the better option.
Danny's jaw worked, words caught behind his teeth. I had a son, Maria continued, voice steady despite the pain underneath. He left home when he was 16. Had his reasons, some good, some not. I didn't find him in time. He died on the streets in Chicago, alone, 2 weeks before I tracked him down. She paused, met Danny's eyes. So when I see a kid sleeping in a parking lot, I stop. I ask. I offer help. Because maybe if someone had stopped for him, maybe if someone had offered, he'd still be here. The diner went quiet. Even Ruth had stopped mid-pour at the next table. Danny's voice came out broken. I didn't have a choice. Tell us, Bishop said. And Danny did. The story came in pieces at first, then in a flood. His mom had died when he was 12. Cancer, quick and brutal. His dad had tried, but grief and bottles don't mix well. And by the time Danny was 15, home had become a place where violence lived in every room. He'd stayed as long as he could, taking the hits, trying to be small, trying to be invisible. The bike had belonged to his grandfather, the only person who'd ever made him feel like he mattered. His grandfather had taught him to ride, taught him basic mechanics, told him stories about the road and freedom and what it meant to be your own man. When his grandfather died, he'd left the Rebel to Danny with a note. When you need to fly, you ride. 6 months ago, Danny's father had come home drunk and meaner than usual. There'd been fists and broken glass, and Danny making a choice between staying and surviving. He'd taken the bike, $23, and the clothes on his back. He'd been riding ever since, working odd jobs when he could find them, sleeping where it was safe, moving when it wasn't. I was heading to Wyoming, Danny said, voice raw. My grandfather's brother lives there. Uncle I never met, but I found his address in my mom's things. Thought maybe. He stopped, shrugged. Thought maybe he'd let me stay. Work for him. I don't know.
It was the only place I could think of. And the bike broke down, Trey said. Yeah, I had enough money for gas, but not for a new chain. Was going to work something out in the morning, but Danny gestured at himself, at his age and his situation. Nobody's going to hire me, not looking like this. Bishop exchanged glances with the other members. Something passed between them, the kind of wordless communication that came from years of riding together, deciding together, being family together. What's your uncle's name? Bishop asked. Reese, Tom Reese, lives in a town called Gillette. Hawk pulled out his phone, typed for a moment. Got a Thomas Reese, age 62, owns an auto repair shop. Reese's Garage. That him? Danny's eyes whitened. I don't know, maybe? One way to find out, Bishop said. He pulled out his own phone, dialed the number Hawk had found, put it on speaker. It rang 3 times, then a gruff voice. Reese's Garage. Tom Reese? Speaking? My name's Bishop. I'm calling about your nephew, Danny Reese. Silence on the other end, heavy and long. Then, I don't have a nephew named Danny. Danny's face fell, hope dying in real time. Actually, Bishop continued, you do. Your brother Jake's son. Jake passed a while back, and Danny's been on his own. He's trying to reach you. More silence. When Tom spoke again, his voice had changed. Rougher, weighted with something between grief and regret. Jake had a son? You didn't know? Jake and we didn't talk. Not for 20 years. I didn't know he'd died. I didn't know. He stopped. The boy's really trying to find me? He's sitting in front of me right now, Bishop said. Rode a 1985 Honda Rebel from Nebraska.
Slept in a parking lot last night because his chain broke and he didn't have money to fix it. He's 17 years old, alone, and you're the only family he's got left." The silence stretched so long Danny thought the line had disconnected. Then, "Put him on."
Bishop handed the phone to Danny, whose hand shook as he took it. "Hello?" Danny's voice was barely a whisper. "Danny," Tom said, and the emotion in that single word, recognition, regret, determination, made the boy's eyes flood. "Danny, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. If I'd known—" "I didn't know if you'd want me," Danny said, tears spilling now, voice breaking. "I didn't know if I should come. I didn't have anywhere else." "You come here," Tom said firmly. "You hear me? You come here right now. I've got a house with extra rooms, a shop that needs help, and a nephew I should have known about 17 years ago. You come home, Danny." My bike's broken. I can't." "Then you fix it, or you get a ride, or you walk if you have to, but you get here. Give me 2 days. I'll be waiting." Danny couldn't speak, just nodded through tears until he remembered Tom couldn't see him. "Okay," he managed. "Okay. Let me talk to Bishop again." Danny handed the phone back, wiping his face with Knox's borrowed jacket. "Bishop," Tom said, "I don't know who you are, but thank you for calling. Thank you for—" his voice caught, "for finding my nephew." "We didn't find him," Bishop said. "We just stopped long enough to see him. But here's the thing, Tom. That bike needs more than a chain, and this boy needs more than a phone call. He needs to know he's not alone anymore." "What do you need from me?" "Nothing, but I'm asking what you can give him." "Anything," Tom said without hesitation. "Everything." "Good. We're going to get his bike running, going to make sure he has what he needs for the road, and we're going to see him safely to Gillette. That work for you?" "You'd do that?" "We're already doing it." Tom's voice broke. "I'll pay you, whatever it costs." "We don't need payment," Bishop said. "We need you to be there when he arrives, to be the family he's been looking for. Can you do that?" "I swear to God," Tom said. "I swear on my brother's grave, I'll be here. I'll be the man Danny needs."
Then, well, see you in 2 days. Bishop ended the call. Around the table, the writers sat in the kind of silence that follows moments that change everything. Danny stared at the phone like it was a miracle made of glass and circuitry. "He wants me," Danny said, disbelieving. "He really wants me." "He does," Maria said, reaching over to squeeze his hand. "You've got family, Danny. You're not alone anymore." The boy put his head in his hands and wept, huge, racking sobs that came from a place of exhaustion and relief, and the sudden, overwhelming weight of hope. Maria pulled him against her shoulder and held him while he cried, rocking slightly, murmuring the kind of comfort that transcends words. The other writers looked away, giving him privacy while staying present, and if some of them had wet eyes too, nobody mentioned it. When Danny finally lifted his head, face blotchy and eyes swollen, he looked around the table at these strangers who'd stopped their journey for him. "Why?" he asked. "Why are you helping me?" "Because someone helped us once," Bishop said simply. "And because this is what we do. We ride, we look out for each other, and when we see someone who needs help, we stop. Simple as that." "I can't pay you back." "Wasn't asking you to," Hawk said. "But someday, when you're on your feet and you see someone else sleeping in a parking lot, maybe you stop. Maybe you help. That's how you pay it back." "I will," Danny said fiercely. "I promise." "Good," Bishop said. He turned to Diesel and Colt. "Let's take a look at that bike, see what we're working with." They moved the operation to the diner's parking lot. Danny's Rebel sat in Colt's trailer, looking small and tired and held together by determination alone. The riders gathered around it like surgeons around a patient, assessing damage. "Chains, obvious," Diesel said, crouching beside the drivetrain, "but the sprockets are worn too. And these tires," he shook his head, "these tires are a death sentence waiting to happen."
"Brake pads are shot," Reed added, checking the front wheel. And the fork seals are leaking. She's been running on prayers and duct tape. Electrical's a mess too, Colt noted, tracing wiring with his finger. Half these connections are corroded. Danny stood to the side, arms wrapped around himself despite Knox's jacket, watching his only possession get dissected. I know it's bad. Brake pads are shot, Reed added, checking the front wheel. And the fork seals are leaking. She's been running on prayers and duct tape. Electrical's a mess too, Colt noted, tracing wiring with his finger. Half these connections are corroded. Danny stood to the side, arms wrapped around himself despite Knox's jacket, watching his only possession get dissected. I know it's bad, he said quietly. I did the best I could. Trace looked up at him, and his expression wasn't judgment, it was respect. Kid, the fact that you kept this bike running this long with no money and no help is a goddamn miracle. You've got skills, real ones. Your uncle's shop is lucky to have you. But it needs parts I can't afford, Danny said, defeat creeping back in. Parts we can afford, Bishop corrected. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Sal? Bishop. Yeah, I need you to open up early. Got an emergency rebuild. 1985 Honda Rebel. Need chain, sprockets, brake pads, fork seals, tires, and basic electrical supplies. I don't care what time it is. I'm paying double. We'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up, looked at Danny. We've got a parts supplier owes me some favors. We'll get what you need, bring it back here, and rebuild this bike right. Should take most of the day. I can't, Danny started. Yes, you can, Maria interrupted, because we're offering, because you deserve a bike that won't die under you on the highway, because you've got 300 miles to Gillette and you're going to make it there safely. But, no buts, Hawk said. This is happening. You can either help us work, or you can sit in the diner and drink coffee. Your choice. Danny looked at the bike, at these 8 riders who'd reorganized their entire day around a homeless kid they didn't know, and made his choice. I want to help. I want to learn. Bishop smiled. Then let's teach you. They spent the next 8 hours transforming the Rebel.
Bishop and Diesel handled the major mechanical work, replacing the chain and sprockets, rebuilding the brakes, installing new fork seals. Reed and Colt rewired the electrical system, fixing connections and replacing damaged components. Hawk and Trace handled the tires, mounting new rubber that would actually grip the road. And through it all, Danny worked beside them, handing tools, asking questions, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. Knox stayed with him, explaining each step, teaching not just what to do, but why, turning repairs into education. Maria ran support, bringing food from the diner, coffee when energy lagged, making sure everyone stayed fed and hydrated. She also pulled Danny aside at one point, handed him a bag. What's this? Open it. Inside, Danny found new jeans, a thermal shirt, a proper jacket with liner, gloves, and a helmet. Not fancy, but solid and safe. You can't ride 300 miles in what you're wearing, Maria said, and you definitely can't show up at your uncle's looking like you've been sleeping in parking lots. I have been sleeping in parking lots. I know, she said gently, but you're not anymore. You're family now. Our family first, your uncle's family when you get there. And family makes sure family is taken care of. Danny's eyes filled again. I don't know how to thank you. Then don't, Maria said. Just be safe. Be good to your uncle. Build a life worth living. That's thanks enough. By 4 in the afternoon, the Rebel was transformed. New chain gleaming, new tires solid and true, brake pads fresh, electrics functioning, fork seals tight. Bishop keyed the ignition, and the engine turned over on the first try. Not the rough, coughing start it had been, but a smooth, steady rumble. Danny stared at it, his broken bike now whole, and couldn't process the magnitude of what had happened in the space of a single day. She'll run, Bishop said, shutting it down. Won't be fast, but she'll be reliable. Get you where you need to go.
I don't... Danny's voice broke. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet, Trace said. We're not done. He went to his bike, pulled out a saddlebag, returned with a bundle. Inside was a sleeping bag, a small tent, a first aid kit, energy bars, water bottles, and a road atlas with the route to Gillette highlighted in yellow. You've got 2 days of riding ahead of you, Trace said. These'll keep you safe and fed. The route's marked. We've called ahead to a motel in Torrington. You'll stop there tonight. Rooms already paid for. Tomorrow you ride to Gillette. Arrive before dark, rested and ready. You're also not riding alone, Knox added. He'd been quiet for the last hour, making phone calls, checking maps. I'm riding with you, at least to Torrington, maybe all the way. You shouldn't make this trip solo. Knox, you don't have to want to, Knox said simply. I've got time. And besides, your first long ride should be with someone who knows the road.
Danny looked around at these 8 people who'd given him more in one day than he'd received in the last 6 months. Tools, parts, knowledge, food, clothing, hope, family, future. He tried to find words big enough to hold his gratitude, and came up empty. "Thank you," he finally said, inadequate and true. "Thank you all." Bishop placed a hand on his shoulder. "Listen to me, Danny. What we did today isn't special. It's just what people should do when I see someone who needs help. The world's hard enough without making it harder on each other. You remember that. And when you're settled, when you've got your feet under you, you pass it on. Help the next kid who needs it. That's how we make things better." "I will," Danny promised. "I swear I will." That evening, Danny and Knox prepared to ride. The other members of Iron Covenant would continue west to the memorial dedication. Danny stood beside his restored rebel, wearing his new gear, facing people who'd been strangers 12 hours ago, and were now something else entirely.
Maria hugged him hard. "You call me when you get there, you understand? Let me know you're safe." "I will." Hawk shook his hand with a grip that was gentle despite his size. "Your uncle's a good man, I can tell. But if anything goes wrong, if you need anything, you call. We're not far. We'll come." "Thank you." Bishop was last. He looked at Danny for a long moment, then pulled something from his pocket. A patch, not a club patch, but a simple embroidered piece showing a motorcycle and a rising sun. Underneath it, it read, "Mile by Mile." "This is a reminder," Bishop said, handing it to him, "that every journey happens 1 mile at a time, that you don't have to have all the answers today. You just have to keep moving forward, keep choosing hope, keep believing there's something better ahead. You pin this somewhere, you'll see it, and when things get hard, because they will, you look at it and remember that a bunch of bikers stopped for you when you needed it most. You remember that people care, that you matter." Danny clutched the patch, nodding because he couldn't speak. They mounted their bikes, Knox leading, Danny following. The rebel started smooth and strong, and Danny felt the rumble through his body like a promise kept. Around him, the Iron Covenant members started their own engines, creating a symphony of thunder and loyalty. They rode together for 5 miles, 9 bikes in formation, Danny protected in the middle. Then, at an interchange, the group split. 7 bikes continued west toward Wyoming and the memorial. 2 turned north toward Torrington and tomorrow and the future. Danny looked back once, saw Bishop raise a hand in farewell, and raised his own in return. Then he faced forward, toward the road, toward his uncle, toward home. Knox kept pace beside him as they rode through the afternoon light. They didn't talk, didn't need to. The road said everything that mattered. Mile by mile, the landscape changed. Mile by mile, Danny felt the weight of the last 6 months start to lift. Mile by mile, he became less the boy sleeping in parking lots and more the young man riding toward family. They stopped once for gas, once for food. Knox showed him how to secure his gear properly, how to read the road for hazards, how to ride with confidence instead of just desperation. Small lessons that added up to safety, to competence, to the kind of knowledge you can't get from YouTube. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, they pulled into the motel in Torrington. The room was already paid for, 2 beds, clean and warm. Danny stood in the doorway, staring at the beds like he'd forgotten what they were for. "Go ahead," Knox said. "Take a shower, get warm. I'll grab us some dinner." 30 minutes later, clean for the first time in too long, wearing his new clothes, Danny sat on the bed while Knox unpacked burgers and fries. They ate in comfortable silence, the TV murmuring news neither of them paid attention to. "Can I ask you something?" Danny said finally. "Yeah." "Why'd you volunteer to ride with me? You don't know me." Knox set down his burger, considered the question. "I was you once," he said. "Different circumstances, same desperation. I was 21, broke, scared, didn't know where I was going or how I'd get there. Bishop found me trying to sell my bike for rent money. He bought me dinner instead, helped me find work, introduced me to the club, changed my life." "So you're paying it forward." "I'm being the person I needed when I was lost," Knox collected. "There's a difference. Paying it forward sounds like obligation. This is choice. I choose to help because I remember what it felt like to be alone, and I choose to believe that the world's better when we take care of each other." Danny absorbed that. "The club, what you guys do, is it always like this? Helping strangers?" "Not always. Sometimes we ride just to ride."
Sometimes we do charity work, veterans, hospitals, kids. Sometimes we just hang out and fix bikes and tell stories. But yeah, when we see someone who needs help, we stop. That's part of the code. Brotherhood, loyalty, service. You think I could? Danny stopped, afraid to voice the hope. Could what? Could ever be part of something like that? A brotherhood? Knox smiled. Danny, you already are. You might not wear the patch, but you've got the spirit. You kept that bike running against impossible odds. You walked 17 miles with it instead of abandoning it. You protected it while you slept. That's loyalty. That's determination. Those are the things that matter. But I'm just a kid. You're 17, Knox said. In a year, you'll be 18. In 2 years, you could prospect for a club if you wanted. Or you could start your own brotherhood. Doesn't have to be motorcycles. Could be your uncle's garage crew. Could be friends you meet. Brotherhood isn't about patches. It's about showing up for people who need you and trusting they'll show up for you. Danny lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, processing a day that had started with him sleeping in a parking lot and ended with him having a future. I'm going to make something of myself, he said quietly. I'm going to learn everything my uncle can teach me. I'm going to be good at something. And I'm going to help other people the way you guys helped me. I believe you, Knox said. And he did. They slept that night in warmth and safety. Danny didn't wake once, his body finally trusting that rest was possible. The next morning, they rode the final 150 miles to Gillette. The landscape opened up, wide sky, rolling hills, the kind of space that makes you feel both small and infinite. Danny rode with confidence now, his Rebel running smooth beneath him, Knox beside him like a guardian. They arrived at Reese's garage just before noon.
It was a solid building, 2 bays, a small office, with a wooden sign that had weathered decades. Several motorcycles sat in various stages of repair, and through the open bay door, Danny could see tool chests and lifts and the organized chaos of a working shop. A man emerged from the office, tall, broad-shouldered, with gray hair and a face that looked like an older version of Danny's father, before the bottles and the bitterness. Tom Reese stopped when he saw the 2 bikes pulling in, his expression cycling through recognition and emotion. Danny killed his engine, pulled off his helmet with shaking hands. He stood beside his bike, facing the uncle he'd never met, and neither of them moved. Then Tom crossed the distance in 4 long strides and pulled Danny into a hug that was fierce and desperate and full of 20 years of regret and all the love that might have been if brothers had talked and pride had been less important than family. I'm sorry, Tom said into Danny's hair. I'm so sorry I didn't know. I'm sorry I wasn't there. Danny held on, his own arms tight around this stranger who was family, who was safety, who was home. I'm here now, he said. That's what matters. They stood like that for a long time, 2 pieces of a broken family finding their way back together. Knox watched from beside his bike, giving them space. When they finally separated, Tom turned to him, eyes wet but grateful. You're the one who called? No, that was Bishop, my president. I just rode escort, made sure Danny got here safe. Tom offered his hand. Thank you for bringing my nephew home. Knox shook it. He did most of the work. I just kept him company. Tom looked at Danny, really looked, seeing the new gear, the restored bike, the hope in his nephew's eyes. They took care of you. They saved me, Danny said simply. Tom nodded, understanding in his expression. Then I owe them a debt I can't repay. They don't want repayment, Danny said. They want me to be okay.
To build a life. To help other people when I can. Then that's what we'll do, Tom said firmly. He gestured to the shop. I've got work enough for 2. Living quarters upstairs. Nothing fancy, but warm and safe. And I've got about 17 years of being an uncle to catch up on. If you're willing? I'm willing, Danny said, and meant it with every part of himself. Knox prepared to leave, checking his bike, planning his route back to meet the club. Danny walked over, suddenly unable to let this moment pass without trying to express what he felt. Knox, I know, Knox said, saving him from having to find words. You're welcome. And Danny, you're going to be fine. Better than fine. You've got family now, work waiting, a future opening up. Don't waste it. I won't. And keep that patch Bishop gave you. When things get hard, remember we saw you when you needed to be seen. We stopped when you needed someone to stop. That's not special. That's just what should happen. But it's also what you can do for others. I will. I promise. Knox mounted his bike, started the engine. He looked at Tom. Take care of him. I will, Tom said. And thank you. Tell your club, tell Bishop and the others that Danny has family here. Real family. They'll never have to worry about him again. Knox nodded, raised a hand in farewell, and rode off. Danny watched until he disappeared around a corner, then turned to face his uncle and his future. Come on, Tom said, arm around Danny's shoulders. Let me show you the shop. Then we'll get you settled upstairs. And tonight, his voice roughened, tonight we'll sit down and you'll tell me about your mom, about your dad, about your grandfather. We'll talk about the family we lost and the family we're building. Sound good? Sounds perfect, Danny said.
They walked into the garage together, uncle and nephew, both carrying grief but also hope, both damaged but healing, both finding in each other the second chance that comes when strangers decide to stop and see and help. That evening, after Danny had been shown the shop and the apartment and introduced to the two mechanics who worked for Tom, after he'd unpacked his meager belongings and pinned Bishop's patch above his bed, he sat down to dinner with his uncle. Tom had cooked, simple food, burgers and fries, but made with care. As they ate, Danny told his story in fuller detail than he'd shared with the club. He talked about his mother's kindness, his father's disintegration, his grandfather's love of bikes and road and freedom. He talked about the 6 months of survival, the fear and exhaustion and desperate hope that had driven him north. Tom listened without interruption, his face a map of emotion, grief for his brother, anger at what Danny had endured, amazement at the boy's resilience. When Danny finished, Tom was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Your grandfather, my dad, would be proud of you. The way you kept that bike running, the way you survived, the way you kept moving towards something instead of just away. That took courage. It took desperation." "Sometimes they're the same thing," Tom said. "But courage is what you do with desperation. You could have given up, sold the bike, hitchhiked, made different choices, but you protected what mattered to you and you kept faith that there was something better ahead. That's courage." Danny felt something loosen in his chest, validation he hadn't known he needed. "Tomorrow," Tom continued, "we start fresh. I'll show you the business side of the shop, teach you proper mechanics, help you finish high school if you want. You'll work for your keep. I'm not running a charity. But you'll learn a trade, save money, build a foundation, and we'll figure out the rest as we go." "I want to learn everything," Danny said. "I want to be good at this, really good." "Then you will be," Tom said. "You've got the determination. I'll provide the knowledge and the opportunity. The rest is up to you." They talked late into the night, filling in years of gap, building the foundation of family from scratch. And when Danny finally went to bed in a room that was his, warm, safe, permanent, he looked at Bishop's patch on the wall and understood what it really meant. Mile by mile, choice by choice, day by day. Not running anymore, building. 6 months later, Danny stood in the workshop at 2 a.m, finishing a rebuild on a 1972 Triumph that had been in worse shape than his Rebel had been. His hands moved with confidence now, each motion practiced and sure. Tom had taught him well, not just mechanics, but business, customer service, the art of seeing what a bike needed instead of just what was broken. He'd finished his GED 3 months ago, started taking online classes in business management, had money in savings for the first time in his life, had friends, stability, purpose. The shop door opened. Tom came in carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this." Danny accepted it gratefully. "Almost done. Just need to time the carburetor, and she'll be ready for the test ride." "Good work." Tom studied the Triumph, then his nephew. "You've got a gift for this, real talent. You taught me everything." "I taught you technical skills," Tom corrected,
But the instinct, the way you listen to an engine, the way you can diagnose problems most mechanics miss, that's yours. That's the same gift your grandfather had. Danny felt pride and grief mixing. I wish he could see this. He can, Tom said quietly, and he'd be proud. I'm proud. They worked in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from shared purpose and growing trust. Danny, Tom said eventually, I've been thinking. Yeah? The shop's doing well. Better than it has in years, honestly.
Your work, your ideas, the way you connect with customers, it's made a difference. I was thinking maybe it's time to make it official. Official how? Tom pulled a paper from his pocket, unfolded it. A business license application. Where it said business name, Tom had written Reese and Reese Garage. Danny stared at it, unable to process what he was seeing. Your family, Tom said. You're also a partner, whether we make it legal or not. But I want to make it legal. I want your name on the shop. I want you to know this is yours as much as it's mine, if you want it. Danny's eyes burned. Are you serious? Completely. You've earned this. And more than that, you've given me back something I lost when your grandfather died. Purpose. Someone to teach. Someone to build something with. You gave me family again. Danny set down his tools, crossed to his uncle, and hugged him hard. Thank you for everything. For taking me in. For teaching me. For... His voice broke. For being what I needed. Tom held him tight. You saved me too, kid. You just don't know it yet. They stood like that in the quiet garage, surrounded by tools and bikes and the life they were building together. 8 months after that, Danny was in the shop when he heard motorcycles pull into the lot. Not just one or two, the deep, coordinated rumble of a group riding together. He walked to the bay door, wiped his hands on a rag, and stopped when he saw them. 8 bikes, 8 riders, the Iron Covenant MC. Bishop led them, his Road King gleaming in the afternoon sun. Knox beside him, grinning. Maria, Hawk, Trace, Diesel, Colt, and Reed behind them. They parked in formation, killed their engines, and the sudden silence felt significant. Danny crossed the lot, his heart hammering. He'd stayed in touch with Knox by phone, had sent updates and photos of the shop and his progress, but he hadn't seen them in person since that day in Torrington.
Bishop, he said, unable to keep the emotion from his voice. Danny, Bishop replied, dismounting, pulling him into a brief hug. You look good, kid. Healthy. I am. He gestured helplessly at the shop, at his life. I'm really good. Maria hugged him next, then Knox, then each of the others in turn. They looked at him with approval and satisfaction, the kind that comes from seeing an investment of faith pay off. We were in the area, Bishop said, though Danny suspected they'd ridden significantly out of their way. Thought we'd check in, see how you're doing. Tom emerged from the office, recognized them immediately. He'd seen photos, heard stories. He crossed the lot and offered his hand to Bishop. You must be the man who called me. I am. Then I owe you more than I can say. You owe me nothing, Bishop said. But I'll take a tour of the shop if you're offering. Heard good things about the work you're doing here. Tom glanced at Danny with pride. We're doing it together. Come on, I'll show you. They spent 2 hours at the garage. The Iron Covenant members admired the work, asked technical questions, praised Danny's skill. They met the other mechanics, heard about the business growth, saw the evidence of stability and success. But more than that, they saw Danny, confident, happy, anchored. The desperate kid from the parking lot was gone. In his place stood a young man who knew his worth, knew his purpose, knew he was home. When it was time for them to leave, Danny walked Bishop back to his bike. The older man studied him for a long moment. You did it, Bishop said. Built something real. Because you stopped, Danny said. Because you all stopped when you could have kept riding. We stopped because someone needed us to, Bishop corrected. But you did the hard work. You chose to trust, chose to try, chose to build instead of just survive. That's all you, kid. Danny pulled the patch from his pocket, the mile-by-mile reminder he carried everywhere.
I look at this every day. When things get hard, when I'm tired or frustrated or doubting myself, I remember that a bunch of bikers saw me when I needed to be seen, helped me when I needed help, and I remember that I promised to pass it on. Have you? Danny nodded. 3 kids so far. Found them in situations like wine. Not exactly the same, but close enough. Helped them find resources, family, hope. One of them's working here now, learning mechanics. Tom and I are teaching him together. Bishop smiled, satisfaction deep in his eyes. Then you understand. That's the legacy. Not what we did for you, but what you do for others. I won't forget, Danny promised. I won't ever forget. Good. Bishop mounted his bike, the others following suit. You ever need anything at all, you call. We're family, Danny. That doesn't expire. I know. And same goes for you. You ever need work done, you come here. It's the least I can do. We'll take you up on that, Knox said, starting his engine. They rode out in formation, engines roaring, disappearing down the highway toward whatever road they were chasing next. Danny watched until they were gone, then turned back to the shop where Tom stood in the doorway, waiting. Good people, Tom said. The best, Danny agreed. They walked back inside together, back to work, back to the life they were building, one repair, one customer, one choice at a time. That night, Danny posted about the visit on the shop's social media. Nothing detailed, just a photo of the 8 bikes parked outside the garage, and a caption. Sometimes angels ride motorcycles. Grateful every day for the brotherhood that saved my life and showed me what family means, mile by mile. The post went viral in ways Danny never expected. Thousands of shares, hundreds of thousands of likes, comments pouring in from people who'd been helped by bikers, who'd been saved by strangers, who'd experienced their own version of being seen when they thought they were invisible.
News outlets picked it up. Local papers, then regional, then national. The story of a homeless teen sleeping beside his broken bike and the motorcycle club that stopped to help became the kind of narrative people needed. Proof that kindness existed, that people still cared, that brotherhood was real. Danny did a few interviews, uncomfortable with the attention, but understanding its value. He talked about the Iron Covenant, not to glorify them, but to illustrate a principle. That we all have the power to stop, to see, to help. That small actions can change entire lives. The attention brought business to the shop, people wanting to support the place where the kid from the story worked. It brought donations to veteran charities the Iron Covenant supported. It brought, most importantly, other stories. People sharing their own experiences of being helped by strangers, creating a cascade of recognition and gratitude. Through it all, Danny stayed grounded. He worked in the shop, studied for his classes, saved his money, and kept his promise to pass it on. 2 years after that morning in the parking lot, Danny stood in the garage working on a custom build, a complete restoration of a 1968 Harley Sportster for a client who'd become a friend. He was 20 now, a full partner in Reese & Reese Garage, with a reputation for quality work and honest service. His phone rang. Knox. Hey, brother, Danny answered. Hey, yourself. You busy? Working. What's up? Bishop wanted me to call. We've got a kid, 17, living out of his car, trying to make it to his grandmother's in Montana. Car broke down about 40 miles from you. We're too far away to help directly, but we thought... Address, Danny interrupted. Knox gave it to him, a rest stop off the interstate. I'm leaving now, Danny said. I'll find him. I'll help. Knew you would. Danny hung up, grabbed his keys, told Tom where he was going. His uncle just nodded, understanding in his expression. Take the truck.
Bring him here if he needs it. I will. Danny drove to the rest stop, found the kid exactly where Knox had said, asleep in the back seat of a beat-up Honda Civic, his belongings piled in the front. The car's hood was up, clearly broken. He knocked gently on the window. The kid startled awake, fear immediate in his eyes. Danny stepped back, hands visible, non-threatening. Hey, my name's Danny. Some friends of mine said you might need help. The kid stared at him, suspicious. What friends? Bikers. Iron Covenant at MC. They couldn't get here, but they called me. Said you're trying to reach Montana. I don't know any bikers. You do now, Danny said. Listen, I know you don't know me. I know you're scared and you don't know who to trust. But 2 years ago, I was sleeping next to a broken bike in a gas station parking lot. No money, no family, no hope. And a group of bikers stopped. They didn't have to. They could have kept riding. But they stopped and they helped me. And they changed my life. Something flickered in the kid's face. Recognition maybe, or desperate hope. I own a garage about 40 miles from here, Danny continued. My uncle and I can look at your car, see what's wrong, get you back on the road. And if you need a meal, a place to sleep, whatever, we've got that too. No strings, no payment required. Just help because you need it. The kid's eyes filled. Why would you do that? Danny pulled Bishop's patch from his pocket, worn now, the edges frayed from being carried every day for 2 years. He showed it to the kid. Because someone did it for me. Because I promised I'd pass it on. Because this is what we do. We stop when someone needs us to stop. So what do you say? Will you let me help? The kid looked at the patch, at Danny's honest face, at the choice in front of him. Then slowly, he nodded. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. Danny smiled. Good. Come on, let's get you somewhere safe, and then we'll figure out the rest.
He helped the kid gather his things, called a tow truck for the car, drove him to the garage. Tom was waiting with food and coffee and the kind of steady presence that said safety without having to speak it. They worked on the car through the afternoon, Danny and Tom and the kid, whose name was Michael. They found the problem, ordered parts, explained the repairs in language Michael could understand. That night, Michael slept in the apartment's spare room. The next day, his car was fixed. Tom refused payment beyond the cost of parts, and Danny loaded Michael's car with food, water, a road atlas with the route to Montana highlighted, and his phone number. You call me when you get there, Danny said. Let me know you're safe. I will, Michael promised. And thank you. I don't know how to... You don't have to, Danny interrupted. Just be safe. Take care of your grandmother. And someday, when you see someone else who needs help, you stop. That's how you thank me. Michael nodded, eyes wet. I promise. He drove away toward Montana and family and hope. Danny stood in the parking lot, watching him go, and felt the circle complete. He'd been helped. He'd passed it on. And somewhere, Michael would do the same. That was the legacy, not fame or recognition or viral posts. Just people helping people. One broken bike at a time. One kid in a parking lot at a time. One choice to stop instead of ride past. Mile by mile, building a world where kindness was passed forward like currency, where brotherhood extended beyond patches and clubs to include anyone who needed someone to see them. Danny looked up at the sky, at the clouds moving across endless blue, and whispered a thank you to Bishop and Knox and Maria and all the others who'd stopped that morning 2 years ago. Then he went back inside the garage, back to work, back to the life he was building. One repair, one kindness, one day at a time.
And he knew with absolute certainty that he'd keep stopping. He'd keep helping. He'd keep passing it on. Because that was the promise. That was the brotherhood. That was the road.